pushing me forward. Let me first of all congratulate the Fatherland Group and Dele. You've done an excellent job. I appreciate all of you, and I commend you very, very sincerely and deeply. And I would have wished that you are addressing a sane society. What you are doing actually is a program meant for a sane society. Be that as it may, let me quickly, because I may not have the opportunity to do so, please allow me to make one or two comments, not comments, just a brief statement. And I'm taking a cue from Kasumu, from Olakule Kasumu, that you cannot discuss anything without discussing the Nigerian question, the national question. Briefly on state police, you talk about state police, and somebody said it may be abused. You could as well say that because the federal government is abusing legislature and abusing judiciary, then state governments should not have judiciary and they should not have legislature because those arms have been abused in Abuja. So the argument that somebody is going to abuse something, really, it should not be a reason for not creating state police, which is what is practiced all over the world. I've said it 1 million times. You cannot send an Okiru to go and police Akure. Okiru does not know Akure. You can't send Okiru to Ikire, to police Ikire. Every crime is local. And therefore, it must be local. It must be people living around that area that can take care of a crime, not somebody from Abuja. The second I want to talk about is about kidnapping. Somebody said the current banditry may be blamed on poverty. Yes, poverty may be, but what is happening in Nigeria it has nothing to do with poverty at all. Even Boko Haram that I'm talking about, Mohammed Yusuf, who created Boko Haram, holds a bachelor's degree in engineering. He wasn't an illiterate. So that's not to do with poverty. Evans, who is doing Evans, was not poor. And what we have in Nigeria is more or less state-sponsored banditry, which then may result into kidnapping and all the other allied vices. So when you ask people all over the world, people who have no job, and you ask them to come to your country, it's not poverty that will be motivating them. They have been brought in to terrorize people. And so what we're having is more 8% of terrorism rather than the poverty induced. The last, of course, is education, which I will also briefly talk about. 66 years ago, when Awolowo introduced free education, specifically January 1955, virtually all houses were burnt in many, many towns and villages in Western Nigeria because the farmers were brainwashed to believing that if their children went to school, there'd be nobody to help them in their farms. And so it has to do with the political will of whoever is introducing free education. It is again tied to political question, to national question. I recall that 2004, just years ago, 2004, Bafarawa built state-of-the-art schools in Sokoto, and there are no children there. They would not come. And a former education minister in 1984, former education minister, who was also a former vice chancellor of a university, said that education is not meant for everybody. And that if everybody went to school, who would be the megad, who would be the messenger, who would be the driver, who would be this, who would be that. So it has to do with mindset, it has to do with political, it has to do with the culture of a people. So education, unless you address the mindset of everybody, and you also address the national question, it's a no-go area. And it can't be blamed on. In any case, education should not be on the exclusive list. Or education should be community and local government affair. Every state should be able to discuss should be able to handle their own educational policies. Now I'll go to this brief discussion on what I've been invited to talk about. and I think the paper is already available there, thinking of a constitution for the people, because like Dele has just said, I should start with also with a disclaimer rather than a preamble that I'm neither a constitutional lawyer or a constitutional drafting expert. All I know is that I have an idea on how best and how effectively society can be run based on generally thought ideas of governance, mutually and collectively agreed to for the sake of peace, progress, and overall development of a society in an atmosphere of equality before the law, justice, equity, and accountability. And I said I'll be using the Canada experience to drum it home that what we are doing in Nigeria is actually not constitutional. And in any case, as Barrister Dele advised me some time ago, that Nigeria can really not claim to have had any constitution, because no constitution in Nigeria had ever been written by the people or we the people. That even the best that we thought we had in 52 and 63 had outsiders intervening in the crafting of such constitutional documents. The Constitution, according to Wikipedia, of course, is just is more than a written text. It embraces the entire global system of rules and principles which govern the exercise of constitutional authority. It's the official reading of selected provisions of the written constitutional enactment without more may be misleading. Now, I use the Canada model, which I also said Canada model is based on British model, and arising from the British North American Act of 1867. So the British model, which Canada has copied, where we have stayed for about 27 years now, first is the royal prerogative, which is anchored on the Queen, the monarch, being the head of state, as in Canada, as also in Australia. So we have that. Then the second is about the unwritten principles, which of course derive mainly on the principles of, or based on traditions and so on, including the statement that much of which is unwritten law, like conventions, they are justable. Among those principles, most recognized as constitutional to date are federalism, liberal democracy, constitutionalism, the rule of law, and respect for minorities. Respect for minorities. Others include responsible government and so on and so forth. Unlike in most federations, Canada provinces do not have provincial constitutions, but they also have laws and regulations that govern the way the provinces are run. Except that the Canada provinces do not have a Senate. Every other thing is just like what you have in at the federal level. And the Canadian Federation, what has made it unique is that it recognizes the importance of the minorities. It also allows for the duality. You have you used to have the French colony that merged with the British colony. So you had the English speaking and then Quebec. But in crafting the constitution, they make sure that Quebec is given almost the same power as you give to the English speaking, so that there'll be no problem. So we have the Charter of Freedoms, where we'll now link this to Nigeria. Freedom of conscience, of religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, freedom of the press and other media communications, freedom of print, publish, freedom of peaceful assemblies. All these are in Canadian Constitution, and because they allow them to work, the country is working. They also have their Charter of Rights, democratic rights, right to vote, office, mobility rights, legal rights, equality rights, and so on. Now, the relevance of all this to the Nigerian current constitution, which I put in quotes because we don't have a constitution, is that we have what is called the Canadian Confederation. What we have in Nigeria is not what we have, unitary system that we are running. The prerogative which gives the government, not the prime minister, head of state, but government in its totality as defined by the constitution. Here in Canada, the prerogative they're talking about gives government, not the head of state and not the president, to declare war, to make appointments and so on. Unlike in our own, where the president, not the constitution, not the government, makes all appointments. And because the president makes all the appointments, he is in charge of the military arm, is in charge of the judiciary, is in charge of legislature. So all of them are just like servants to the head of state, not to government, because government is already in the pocket of the chief executive. Other words, phrases like responsible government, representation by population. Nigeria is probably the only country in the world that base representation on land maps. All other countries in the world base representation on population. Like we have in Canada here, Ontario controls about 17% of the population of Canada. If it were be in Nigeria, it will be the prairies and the desert, the dry zones of Canada that will be producing leadership all the time. But because here representation is based on population, we are Lagos, for instance, with about 25 million as World Bank figures, is having only 20 local governments, and Kano is having about 47. So if you add Jigawa. And of course, we know, I was a federal commissioner of Nigerian Population Commission in 1988-89. I know that apart from Bida, maybe Kano, and maybe a few other towns, the population really in the far north is nothing to write about. But here we are. Then there is allowance for each province to amend its own constitution. There is in the Canadian constitution a proviso that allows every state or every province to amend its own constitution to suit its own purpose. We don't have that in Nigeria. Then it is hoped that sooner than later, a majority of either private nationalities that were forcibly brought into marriage of convenience by British imperialists remove their shackles. I know I have maybe 10 minutes. I don't know how much time you allocate to this. I will now go to thoughts on a constitution for the people. I will still say constitution for the Yoruba nation, but I can even say constitution for the people in the sense that we have to be original in what we are doing. Even the Western model that people have been talking about arose from a culture, from a tradition that recognizes or worshipped class. When Plato was talking about democracy, women were not recognized. Women were not the citizens he was talking about. It was democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people, was democracy for the landed gentry. Children were not involved. Poor people were not involved. And that is why all the constitutions practiced in the Western world majorly arose from this class consciousness, more of aristocratic in nature. And that is why Blade in 2004, a senator in America said that America does not practice democracy. America practices capitalism and not democracy. Because going to election, going to the voting booth, election booth, electoral booth every 4 years does not translate into democracy. So if we are going to have constitution, my thoughts on constitution for the Yoruba nation and maybe for Nigeria, for those who still believe that there is a country called Nigeria, or if you are going to have union of regions in Nigeria, say 6 regions, then form a union like EU, and each region will have this kind of constitution that I'm talking about. And my thought is that Benin Empire, Yoruba or Oyo Empire, the Hausa Empire, the Kanemi, all of them practiced one form of monarchical structure, one form of monarchical government. And in those cultures that I am very certain about, class was not an issue. In Ondo State, in Ondo of old, where democracy was the most advanced in all the research I conducted, Every household will send somebody to the adubo. The adubo will now will be led by the Oloriton, which is also in Ijebu Ode, which is also in Benin, which was also in Abegunde. And then from that on, from in Ijebu, they call them Pampa, the people. Then we grow from there and so on till the government. You have the Parakoi, which is the Chamber of Commerce. You have the Uboni, which constitutes the legislature, including judiciary, merged together, and so on and so forth to the king. And the king does not have absolute powers. No king in any of the kingdoms in Africa, and this in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, had absolute powers. Once they go offline, they are made to commit suicide or they are overthrown. So what I'm proposing is that we have constitutions that will be molded along the path of the constitutions that our people had. Egba state government was already signing treaties with Europe before all this amalgamation nonsense. The Lagos colony had its own, and even Ibadan City Council, which was like an Ibadan City State, had an agreement, was signing an agreement with the protectorate in Lagos, with the British people in Lagos. What I'm saying in essence is that if we go back and we're not reinventing anything, we have to root our constitution, because we had these unwritten constitutions that worked for our people, and no problem. Egba state was very, very prosperous. The same thing was Ijebu state was very, very prosperous at that time. And because we had the government that was run by the Ijebu people, headed by the monarch, who was the paramount head. I'm proposing, therefore, that like in Yoruba land, we have 19 recognizable kingdoms. Each kingdom, like the Ekiti kingdom, like the Ondo kingdom, like the Ikale Laje kingdom, like the Egba kingdom, like the Owo kingdom, will have,
Chief, I think
their government.
Yeah.
And then the governments may then come together and form a federation. And that's why
Yes. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. I think your paper, some of these details now, it's contained in your paper. So I think we will be taking up your paper because I think it's very deep. And this is why it will be useful to use the time, limited time we've got now, to bring Dele in, because the point you've just made, the Canada model and how you transformed it, how it fits into the old 371 nationalities is something that's certainly worth considering. But Dele, this may be Dele Abegunde. This is a time perhaps you might want to come in now. Now you've heard what Chief have to say. Do you want to expand on the Swiss model so that we will make sure that we've got the Canada model, seen how Chief have blended it? Can you give us some insight on your experience in Swiss model?
Thank you, Dele. I want to appreciate Chief Adeniyi. He spoke into my heart. I was saying that all the things I wanted to say, Chief, he being more experienced than I am, has touched on everything. I want to share my experience in Switzerland. I remember one time discussing that involved Dele, and I said, if I ever have any role to play in charting the course of Nigeria, I will carry a placard that we have to bring down the Swiss system down to Nigeria, because that is what we kind of solve all these issues for every tribe and every nationality in Nigeria. I don't have much time. I just want to say I will be drawing parallels from our situation in Nigeria and what the Swiss have gone to and how they have come to now form a system where every canton, every state is a sovereign state on itself that can sign treaty internally or externally, have their own constitution to work with, even though there is a federal constitution. In our own view here, the federal government in Switzerland, we can be say it's a weak government. Its role is just to make a general constitution from which the states draw their own constitution also. But it is the states that feed the federal government. I asked the question one time, I said, who is the president of Switzerland? And nobody could tell me. I said, in principle, there is no elected president. All the cantons, they elect 2 people into the National Council, the Council of State, and those ones that in that they rotate the presidency every year. They come amongst themselves and nominate someone to represent them as the president of Switzerland. Perhaps this is one reason that we don't hear fights and rumblings in Switzerland, because everyone is content. As we all know, Switzerland started as a country in 1291 with less than 13 cantons. There are 26 cantons now. Just to show that Switzerland kept evolving. They went through all these challenges that we went through. They went through a period where there were religious chauvinism from the Roman Catholics in Switzerland, even up to civil war, the Sunderland Civil War, and they all came around and agreed on this sovereign arrangement, which they defend fiercely. I entered Switzerland in 2001, and what I noticed was that if you discuss to suggest that Geneva Canton does not have its sovereignty, if you did that in public, you will get very hard looks of protest. And when I asked, I was told that each of the cantonal, they fought for their sovereignty, and so they still defend it till today strongly. But it is working, and for them they are at peace. It's one of the peaceful countries, and their economy is blossoming quite well, based on this fact that they work their sovereignty. Every canton is sovereign on itself with its own constitution. And now in Nigeria, people are arguing against this. They say it won't work. And for me, I say no. This is the model that will actually work with them. They had their own period where the French nation came and ruled them, and then it didn't work. And then they got their sovereignty. They have their own time in their own history where they all came together again and reestablished sovereign states instead of the administrative states that the French gave them during the time of Holy Roman Empire. In Switzerland, we see federalism in its true sense of it. Each canton, for instance, has its own government. So all cantons have their own constitution, which is the highest law in a state. The Swiss federal constitution declares the canton to be sovereign to the extent that their sovereignty is not limited by federal law at all. In the Swiss Confederation, the armed forces, currency, the postal service, telecommunication, immigration into and emigration from the country, granting asylum, conducting foreign relations with sovereign states, civil and criminal law, weights and measures, and customs duties are reserved for the Confederation. Each canton has its own constitution, legislature, and so on. There's so much to. I will just touch on some of them and then move on because of time. As at the federal level, all cantons provide for some form of direct democracy. citizens may demand a popular vote to amend the cantonal constitution or laws. What I first found out is that the citizen power to change government, to speak to government, this was coming from Nigeria. This was strange to me. In Switzerland, what they have worked is that democracy, where the citizens are the highest political authority. I emphasize that too. The citizens are the highest political authority, allowed to participate in all spheres of government activities. The country's citizens are at the pinnacle of power. The government officials are servants to the citizen. That's the way they work it. And so they have to be listening to their masters all the time. I will give you an example. During an election, somebody who will be the executive for Canton of Geneva, he will already has formed his cabinet, and it is his picture and his cabinet that will be displayed on the buses. And if one person in the town will say that one of the person that he had put across stole a bicycle in primary school, that man is gone. He's gone. He's not going to participate in that election again. And I was wondering, well, he should have done his investigation where the society will not have accepted his cabinet. And this is, I thought that this is a very good model for Nigeria. In 2015, our president waited for about 6-9 months to even choose a cabinet, while the economy of the world was tumbling. They have a bicameral assembly, and again, it is bottom up, not top down like it is here. They have the federal courts. You know, the laws are in the hands of the federal level. They have the federal courts, but in the states they also have their courts which implements the rules according to the federal court. I have written a short paper, but it was late. I appreciate that Dele still accepted it. I think he will put it in the library for you to get the details. It's quite interesting. Now, I will just, in conclusion, I will give you some of my personal experience. Some of them are funny, but they are instructive. Sometimes in 2003, there was a young motorist that used his horn on a sports car in a bus terminus. I was standing by the road with my children, and the whole of the people in that environment turned in consternation, and they showed their anger to these young people. And I was wondering, it was then that I suddenly realized that I have never had the hoot of a horn since I came to Switzerland 3 years ago. And so the society, they keep their rules. It's not left to the police. It's not left to the government. The society keeps their rule because, one, the society was the one that wrote the constitution, not the government writing the constitution for them. The constitution was written by the people and given to some people to run it as a systems of group. At about the same year, I was pastoring a Nigerian church, and I came to church one day, and less than half of the people were there. And I asked the question, what's going on? They said there is voting. For me, it was shocking. Voting, and there had not been months of noise making and all. I said, what are they voting for? Is it election time? They said that there is they want to decide nationally whether to allow journals. Journals are like kiosks, small shops, to open on a Sunday. I almost lost my message in the church that day. To allow journals to open on a Sunday, the whole of the country is voting. Yes, they voted, and by the evening, the result was out that they will not allow them except if they were located in the train station. And the country moved on. Now, the incisive lesson to me was that I didn't see any polling booth being hoisted and all. And I said, where are the polling booths? They said they are in the traditional places. If you wanted to vote in the polling booth, you just go in there and voted. But a lot of people voted from their bedroom. This was very instructive. And I was noting that, I was hoping that we will come to this point in Nigeria. Finally, I have many examples, but the last example, because I know my time is off, was I wanted to exchange after 10 years, you could use your Nigerian license to drive in Switzerland. But I wanted to leave Switzerland and I wanted to have a souvenir. The souvenir I decided was to exchange my driver's license with and obtain the Swiss driver's license. And the process is just, I would just go to the office, drop it, then they will ask me to come back and collect my Swiss driver's license. But when I came back, I was basically under arrest. And the reason was that my driver's license from Nigeria was fake. You could imagine how embarrassed I was. So I put on the Nigerian bravado. I said that Swiss government has no right to declare a Nigerian document fake. So I even brought in the ambassador of Nigeria to Switzerland to come and intervene. He couldn't, and he knew that. Because in Switzerland, to run their system, they have a very caste system of data management. So it is a federal law. If a fake document is found on you, I could go to jail. So I found myself, I had to obtain a lawyer, and the prosecutors were quizzing me. I have had a court date and all. But what saved me from that was that after a lot of argument to the police, I told them that this was not my first driver's license. And I said my first driver's license in Nigeria, we used to use paper, not card like this. And that, in fact, I still have everything. I have a knack for keeping documents. And so one of the policemen just asked me, so where's the one that you renewed? Let me give you I came back on holidays in 2015, and I wanted to drive from Lagos to Ilorin, but my driver's license was expired, and I stick to the rules. So I gave my younger brother's driver to go and renew my license. He went and came back in the afternoon with a renewed license. I was very happy. This is the license that was declared as fake, because they asked me questions. You came to Lagos, you are going to Ilorin. Why is your driver's license? And they asked me, why is my driver's license reading Ogun State? Do you live in Ogun State? I said, in Nigeria. Look, all of those. I almost was going to jail. Then he asked me, where is the older one? Unfortunately, I had it in my wallet. I removed it and gave it to them. He excused the meeting and went inside. Apparently, Nigeria data is also with them. And he came back. He said, look, you are very fortunate. This older one that you renewed is authentic. That was how they dropped the case. These are some of my, they are very, very funny experience, but very instructive. And I keep asking myself, why can we not get here in Nigeria? We will not get here except we restructure so that every nation, every Nigerian nation, will go and establish their own system the way they want it to work. I long to be part of the old Western system. I long to be. It was sane, it was reasonable, you knew where you were going. There was a collective directioning. We don't have a Nigeria now. I hope you all know.
Thank you, Dele. Dele, I think we were all captivated by your story. We could have listened to it more and more. Please, it's really wonderful, but there's a time that we haven't got. So can I quickly, swiftly ask for those who are the discussants for this session to come up, please. I think we have Ayinde, KATUNGA. I think you will be the next person to speak. Please, if you can keep it as brief and as short as you can. I think we all got the message now, but I don't want all the work you've also prepared to be a waste. So Ayinde, I wait for you. Is Ayinde there? No. Hello? Okay.
I can't.
Right. Let's move on to, yeah, okay. Chimi Ezigbo. Is he there or?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Yeah. Chimi,
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And thank you for the people who've just spoken. I just wanted to make some points. So with regards to the Constitution, and also as it relates to, you know, the different ethnic groups in Nigeria and nation building. And it's interesting to hear the Swiss example. But one thing I've come to realize is that you can only build a nation with people who actually want to build a nation. So there's the option of disintegration, there's the option of restructuring. But of course, you can only build a nation with people who actually want to build a nation. And I believe that from our history, that the caliphate do not strike me as the people who want to build a nation, but more so people who are, you know, on a mission of a conquest. And this was something that happened with the Fulani and Hausa about 200 years ago, you know, the conquest and the spread down south, and it seemed like there was a bit of a pause and we're at it again. So what I'm not comfortable with is that 100 years from now, after we may have restructured Nigeria, our great-grandchildren will have to deal with another conquest from the core north. I would rather just put an end to it and just say, you know, let's be friendly neighbors. And also, what makes a nation is value system. So it seems to me, I would say that the people in Switzerland and also, shall I say, Canada are united by shared values. And sometimes these values are formed by religion, you know. So yes, there may be different ethnic groups in Switzerland. You know, you have the Francophone, the Italians and the Germans, but these are all part of the Christian family, shall I say. So their laws will stem from those Judeo-Christian values. I think it would be almost impossible to suggest that Israel and Saudi Arabia and Iran can come together and agree to a constitution that works for them. Would it be based on Jewish laws or would it be based on Sharia? And that's where we are in Nigeria. So I think there's a clash of civilizations in Nigeria. And when we look at it as well, something must unite a nation. Most of the time, it's either united by religion or is united by ethnicity. If I use the example of the Yoruba people, the Yoruba may be divided by religion, but they're united by language and culture. But assuming that the Yoruba people were divided by language and divided by religion, then what then would actually, you know, unite them? It just wouldn't work. And then lastly, when we talk about reviewing a constitution, should I say revamping, amending the constitution, we in the South seem to think that we're all across Nigeria, that everyone agrees on what we are going to amend it to. Let's not forget that the constitution has always been being amended. You know, we had the I know there's the 1963, there was some amendments in the 80s, I believe there's a 1999 constitution, and it has always been amended to favor a particular part of the country. And this part of the country has the advantage. I believe that when you amend the constitution, it will have to be agreed the National Assembly will probably have to vote on it. So we have to ask ourselves, who are the majority in the National Assembly? You know, when they amend the Constitution, would they really want to lose their own advantages that the current Constitution gives them? And the answer is probably no, because if we were in their shoes, we probably wouldn't want to. And unfortunately, in the National Assembly, they are the majority. So when we think of the Constitution and amending it, we really have to understand that the odds are stacked against us. And what you think that you want the Constitution to should be amended to is not necessarily what they may want it to be amended to. So yeah, value system is key. And I just think that's something that we don't have in Nigeria, a shared value system. And there's no country, very lastly, there's no country in this world with the same demographics as Nigeria has that is actually progressive. Some people may say, how about India? But India has, I think Hindus make up about over 85% of India's population. So you just have to unite by that. Indonesia, the same thing, is mainly Muslim. There's just no country that's divided by religion and divided by ethnicity that's progressive. And we saw what happened to Yugoslavia. So yeah, thank you very much.
Fantastic, really good, strong points. Thank you very much. Can I call on, is Ayinde back, or maybe Professor Olumide Ijose? Let's take Olumide Ijose.
Can I share my screen, please? Can I share my screen?
Yes, I think you can.
Okay.
You can now.
All right. Okay, so I can't, I'm trying to make this full screen. Okay, F5. All right.
You probably have to unshare and then share the F5
Okay.
version. The F5 opens in a new window.
Sure. You know what? I'm just going to do it. I hope you guys can see. All right, and see my screen when I do share, because that didn't work for me. Okay, so I call it leapfrog economic growth, the political pillar. But first of all, thanks to Dele and Fatherland and everybody that is here listening to me today. So I enjoyed listening to Akogo Tola Adeniyi talk about Canada, and Dele Abegunde talk about the Swiss model and the level of detail that they're able to provide. You know, so I have a deck here, but I'm going to go through it really, really fast. So it's going to be at a very, very high level. And I come to this topic, you know, from, my academic background is in international business and corporate strategy, you know. So, and I quickly understood that, you know, to create a thriving economy, right, you know, two things have to be in place, or even three things have to be in place. And the first thing is that political foundation has to support economic growth, right? So clearly in Nigeria, the economies are growing, and we all know that the political system, you know, is not supportive, right? It's actually deterring and taking away from growth. So something needs to give in Nigeria. And as far as I'm concerned, it starts with a sovereign national conference. Right. So what is the Sovereign National Conference? It's a conference where the decisions that are made by the conference is binding. Right. There could be a referendum after, but essentially it's binding. Right. You know. So to me, there has to be a process, right, to create that Sovereign National Conference. As the last speaker spoke about, right, you know, there needs to be a common set of values and a culture and some norms, right, that bind the people together for them to be a country. So the first thing is there to be a call for a sovereign national conference, right, you know, by a current government. The next thing, as far as I'm concerned, is there should be a process where the ethnic groups and nationalities where they meet, and they're going to meet and discuss amongst themselves and take a vote, have a referendum. Are we going to stay or are we going to leave the country? Because to get those common values and those common norms and culture, right, it has to be freely given, right? So if the Edo say they want to leave, let them go, right? If the Yoruba say they want to leave, let them go. If people say they want to stay, let them go. So it's the people that remain, right, that choose to freely remain after talking amongst themselves, right, and and making that decision that will go and sit on a table, right, and talk about, right, whether or not, what kind of constitution that we want to create, what kind of structure that we want to build. Now, also, as part of that process, you have to remember that Nigeria has a lot of small ethnic groups, right? Those small ethnic groups, right, for if I was them, right, stay or leave, I'd be tempted to stay because when you're so small, right, it's hard to be consequential, like, in the world. So for those groups, right, they should have an opportunity to decide amongst themselves how they want to align. Do the those and the Robos and the Sheikhs want to align with the Jaws, or don't align with the Igbos, or align with the Hausas, whoever they don't align with, and have a referendum, right? So at the end of the day, right, those people who are going to be determining, right, the new constitution and the new structure are the willing, right, the willing who have decided that I really want to stay, right, in whatever you're going to call the new country. The next thing is, like, I hate to be prescriptive. So can I just have the Swiss system or the Chinese system, right? The next thing is to agree on for the willing to agree on type of government that they want. And I'm just going to run through, like, some of, this next slide is going to run through some of the, some of the current, systems in the world that are proven to be successful, right? But the idea is, are we going to be a democracy? It's going to be parliamentary. It's going to be an executive. It's going to be a meritocracy. It's going to be a social democracy. Those for me are the four types that are the most, because out of this, I didn't put a monarchy here, constitutional monarchy here, right? And I not put religious government here too. So it's going to be a democracy or a meritocracy as in China, or a social democracy as you have in the Scandinavian, right? So the parliamentary democracy, you have examples, you got Canada, you got the UK, executive, you got the US, so we all know what that is, right? So the next thing is, like, once you've decided what kind of government you want, how are you going to distribute power, right? From the state, from the federal, across different levels of government, especially the powers that have been federalized in the current Nigerian constitution. Too much power is in the center. The next thing they have to agree is on asset and liability sharing, because some nationals are going to say they want to go. If you want to go, there has to be, like, some equitable way of saying, okay, you're going to give this assets, you're going to give this liability. The country owes X amount of dollars, right? Of whatever currency it is, that's going to be your share. So that has to be, like, agreed to. And then after that, that could be, a referendum, right? So, amongst the people who have decided to stay, whose representatives have gone to, to sit down and make all those decisions. Okay, this is the new constitution, this is the new structure, right? Do you agree to it? Okay, so just a quick run through, like, on the types of governments that could be, in picture for those who are willing to stay because they share those common values and those common norms and those common culture, and they think the best way to equalize their prosperity now and to the future, right, is to be part of that country. Right? So you have meritocracy. That's what you have in China, right? So in China, right, officials are selected according to their ability and virtues. Is a top-down process. There are no elections, right? But so that system basically means that ruling party controls all kind of resources, land, finance, procurement, and that leads to corruption. Because you're always asking for favors, so that can lead to corruption. So how does China, like, how is the promotions, from the local level to to run the Chinese Communist Party? How does it go? Right, it goes to what they call a central organization department. Right, it's more like a big HR function. So they make all those decisions. The challenge is who gets the guardian. Right, the people make those decisions, who guards them. And in 2018, which is last year that I found in my research, 68 officials of the Central Organization Department were punished for corruption. So that's China, right? They have representative democracy, right? Which is like what you have in the US, right? And that goes from a continuum. You got the US style, you got the Canadian style, you got the UK style of devolution, you got the Swiss style of confederation, you got the Russian style of autocracy, right? So the people on the table, we have to, like, is this what we want? Democracy, right? The rulers elected by the people. decision making is vested in officials, right? They have the social democracy where power is centralized. It's also based on election, right? But the thing about social democracy is a commitment to curbing inequality. Social democracy can only work when there's centralized power, because curbing inequality simply means provide education, support for housing, support for healthcare, support for retirement benefits, and then support for unemployment, because there's a business cycle, right? Things can happen all the time. People can lose their jobs, but there has to be some level of centralization so that the fiscal resources is available to the central power to do that. That's another possibility. So what's the best for Nigeria, for those people that want to stay in Nigeria? It's up to the willing. So you got to start, are you in, are you out? It's up to those people that are in to decide what they want to do. Do you want to go US style, US democracy? Because you might say that, that we want devolution of power and federalism, or the willing might say, well, like social democracy. We want to concentrate power in the center because we want to, be able to curb inequality. Or they might say, well, we like meritocracy, right? Or it could be a hybrid. The hybrid could be a system whereby, the willing say, at the center, we're going to have representative democracy, but the federated units can decide whatever they want to do for their constitution. So the Yorubas might say, yeah, we're in, but we want a meritocracy. The Igbos might say, we're in, we want a social democracy. Hausas might say, we're in, but we want a US style, system. Some people in the middle belt might say we're in, but we want a Russian style system, right? The key is that, each nationality should have the opportunity to decide, right? What that's in a hybrid, right? What kind of constitution that he wants to, that he wants to run. But the point for me is, and this is my last slide, the key success factors. The one is leadership, vision, and courage, right? Vision to say Nigeria is not working, right? Courage to say, let's each nationality to make their decision whether they want to leave or want to stay. Courage to say, we're going to have a sovereign national conference with attention on the word sovereign, and then a free and fair referendum, whatever comes out of it. So to me, right, until that political system is working, right, it's a country of the willing, right, the economic growth that we're looking for is going to be elusive. And if you don't have economic growth as a people, right, you're not going to have that global, you're going to have the military might, because.
Thank you, Prof. Sorry that we have to cut you off, but like I said, your slide again, it's one of those things that I'm being library, but really, excellent points, especially on the detailed process. I think that's that granular level, we don't often get it. So thanks for that. Can I just check whether Samson Jesi is here, or if it's not, then Jerry Sodipe. Is Samson here? Okay. Well, can I bring Jerry if Jerry's here, so that Samson can then come back? Okay, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, right.
Yeah. All protocols observed. This has been a very, very insightful conference, and I'm just going to go straight to the point. I had read Akogun's, with respect, Chief Akogun's paper, and I'm happy that he has today mentioned something he did not mention in his paper, and that is that very unique point that whatever constitution we're going to end up with must be original. Throughout our span, the life of Nigeria, we have been adopting constitutions by the British. We've adopted the federal system for the First Republic. Then we went on to adopt the American system. But we are copycats and we assume a lot. So our problem really is not what is written in those constitutions, one, and neither is it that there are no provisions in those constitutions which should ideally ensure that there should be good governance. That's really not the problem in the country. The problem we have really is the political will something original to the various nationalities and ethnicities. And look, Chimzi put it very well. It's like putting Iran and Israel together in a country. What are the shared values? What are the advantages with regards to languages? Now, when you have a constitution, it simply means that people have come together to agree on how they want to be ruled and to be governed. In the last 50 years, that has not been the case in Nigeria. We will copy constitutions, we would even constitute conferences. But if you talk about the Sovereign National Conference in Nigeria today, nobody is going to be ready. They've had so many conferences. The last one, which was the most relevant one, was the 2014 conference. That was the most representative conference. But again, too, even if it was the most representative conference, by the time it goes to a referendum, does it mean it will be adopted? With respect, no. Part of the papers that were submitted for this conference were two very good examples: the South African experience at constitution drafting and the Kenyan experience. The South African experience, which was, it was Mandela who was in charge, they thought they had a perfect constitution, but the people rejected it. And it had to be fine-tuned. That's one. Secondly, the Kenyan experience was hijacked by Museveni. So the point I seek to make is just that you have those words written in those constitutions, whether you call it a fraudulent constitution or whatever. There are still good examples in there. And let me just read a quote from, I want to take Mr. Abegunde up now with regards to when he was saying there's direct democracy in the Swiss model. Look, a typical example of what he espoused in his paper, you will find in even the 1999 Constitution. And this is what it says: the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on the principles of democracy and social whatever. Section 2 of that section says, it is hereby accordingly declared that the sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom a government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. Is that what has been obtaining? No. So we have all these words in constitutions and in documents. So what am I going to profile? I mean, there are other examples. People talk about police reforms. There is a section in that 1999 Constitution, albeit termed a fraudulent constitution, which says there should be a police council. That police council should have the president and all the 36 state governors. The 36 state governors you have in Nigeria are also the chief security officers. But there is a proviso there in that constitution, which says that the governors would not be able to influence deployment and operational duties of the Inspector General of Police. We have an amended clause in the Constitution. Why has that not been amended if that is an impediment to police reforms? So, gentlemen, if there's anything you take away, it is simply that our problems are not that there are no written frameworks. Let me not use the word constitutions. There are written frameworks, albeit constitutions, but the reason why you have a National Assembly is that if there are lacunas, they should make up for it. You are not going to have a perfect constitution anywhere. We are not. Constitutions evolve over years. The Swiss model is very good for the Swiss people. It does not mean it will be good for the Nigerians, or for Nigerians rather. So, gentlemen, that is just it. I can go on and on to give examples. Look, lastly, let me just round up. The 1979 Constitution, which I grew up with, I felt it was an ideal constitution. But why was it bad? There's chapter 2 there, which is called the principles of state directive policies. That is where if it could be implemented, it simply means that you can sue either the state government or the federal government. But you couldn't do that under the 1979 Constitution, and it was a federal constitution. Now, the 1993 Constitution brought in what? It brought in Chapter 4, which made it possible for me and you, Nigerians, to be able to sue for their fundamental human rights. So in a way, we moved ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I think we've got it. Can I call on Tope? Is Tope, Akeremale, is Tope here?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, right. Sorry, Tope, if I've murdered your name.
It's all right. It's all right. Everybody murders it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this forum. Regarding the topic that we are discussing, I think I would like to start with the point that was being made about the Swiss model and the Canadian model. From the little I know of Nigeria, Nigeria seems quite confused in terms of the type of constitutional order that we adopt. Either we are adopting a unitary system or a federal system, or adopting a unitary system that we are calling a federal system. Now, in terms of what we write down and in terms of application, I'm going to give you some recent developments. I don't know if any of us here are conversant with the discovery of gold in Zamfara. Is it Zamfara or somewhere here? And then the governor jumped out and said, "Okay, we are going to have a gold reserve for our state gold reserve," right? However, when you look at the exclusive legislative list, if you look at item 39 on the Nigeria's constitution, the exclusive legislative list is actually that list that is controlled at the federal level, meaning that everything that we discuss on this point is within the jurisdiction of the federal government, of the central government. And it includes mines, minerals, geological surveys, oil fields, and oil mining. And this is one of the things that the control of these mines and minerals is one of the things that led to the advocacy of the Ogoni people, saying that, okay, we want to, from saying that, you are polluting our land, to saying that, okay, why don't we even control our oil, and led to the whole insurgency in the Niger Delta, which led to, the whole, basically led to like 13% derivation, etc., okay? However, it is showing that, that the control of resources, right, is essential in terms of when we are discussing about the type of model that we are going to follow as a country. Then secondly, I think Chims made a point earlier, which I want to also elaborate upon, that talking about shared values. If we go back to the days of the Western region, the Northern region, and the Eastern region in Nigeria, we see that where you have a set of people who share a common value, a common identity, then those people are able to they are able to move forward at their own pace and speak languages which they do understand. Now, that's why if you see the Western region, they could develop and formulate policies that was agreeable. Yes, even though there might be disputes, don't get me wrong, there might be disputes in the Western region as to which way they are going to go, or even in the Eastern region. But generally, these disputes is not such that, you do not, where there's a huge level of distrust, like somebody from the North coming to say that they want to impose a policy on the West, or somebody from the West saying they want to impose a policy all over the whole country, in that particular instance. I'm talking about that Swiss model, when the discussant was saying that, yes, the Swiss, they've actually had the Sonderborn war, etc. We should remember that, the Western region that we're talking about, that, was doing quite well, and then it was doing well educationally, resource-wise, in terms of cash flow. They also had the Kiriji War in the 1860s, etc., which was almost around the same, a few years apart from the Sonderborn War. And they were still able to, go on as a collective under the Western region and then prosper accordingly. Now, Nigeria's, in terms of like the constitutional discourse, Nigeria's problem is not one that we can put on like an idealistic forum where we are going to say that, oh, let's say we are going to have a conference, and that conference, no, that there is a fundamental cultural divide in Nigeria. What we are looking for is different, and Chims touched upon it, about the conquest that is coming from the north down south. So to a point that when you now start discussing constitutionalism with somebody who is not ready to live in peace with, who sees together, we should decide to go our separate ways.
Thank you very much. Excellent points. Thank you. Okay. I take it that Stephen is not here. John is not here.
Samson is back. I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier, Chair, but if I've missed anything, I am sorry, but I'm back now.
There's only 2 minutes now you've got, unfortunately. So go on. Because
For me?
You're gone. You're on there.
Are you talking to me, Samson?
Samson, yeah, Samson.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just caught the last bit of what you were saying last week, and I think most people on our platform know my view. I'm one of those people who cannot see any resolution to the status quo right now. Apart from, the only thing I say is that we should amicably go our separate ways. And the reason why I say that, I think others have spoken about ethnic nations. I believe in ethnic nations. I believe in nations that where you can find commonality across your people, or if you like, the citizens. Nigeria is not such a place. And I have tried myself. People say you shouldn't lose hope. Well, I had a lot of hope enough to invest my own money, not bank money, not borrowed money, my own money in the country. Hope enough to stay there and slug it out for 6 years. And then at the end, I gave up, because it seems to me everything I did, Nigeria was an obstacle. Nigeria, I'm not talking about the houseman at the ports. If Nigeria was an obstacle, when I imported things, Nigeria made it difficult for me to clear it. When I tried to export things, Nigeria made it impossible to export things. All Nigeria wanted for me was to bring sterlings and pounds into the country, go to a hotel, change it, enjoy myself, not create anything of value. And when I try to employ people, the same thing. So people it goes again to what people say about, they say the structure of the people. Now the structure is bad, but because the people are so used to living within such a structure, you can't do anything with them. When you employ them, they're working for themselves, not creating value for you. At the end of the year, you find out you've invested £1, you're now worth 10 pence. That's my take on Nigeria. So when people are talking about solutions, I wonder whether, as intelligent people, a lot of us have PhDs, master's degrees, all kinds. I wonder whether they've actually sat down and thought about the country from a simple, logical way, and then think about the solutions they are preferring to such a country. Because if I sit down, look at it from my professional perspective as a consultant, I would say this is a dead end. Look for something new. So I would like anyone on the platform, on this forum, to help me understand what it is they think they can do to Nigeria as it is today to stop people like me, I'm a Deltan, people like me being killed either by Nigerian army or by the environmental pollution that Nigeria has created in my backyard.
Thank you.
So I am not a Nigerian. I don't prefer to be to retain the status quo, the Nigerian status quo. No, I am looking for a new solution, and that solution does not involve restructuring. It involves, for me, separation. So whether I align with the Yoruba, I don't care who I align with. What I know is that I do not want Nigeria, and nothing can change my mind. I have seen it. I've invested there. I have properties in Nigeria. I would rather lose all that today to be free of Nigeria. I'm telling you, whether it's in Abuja or Lagos, I'm happy to let all those properties go just to be free of Nigeria, because I don't see anything good coming out of it. I don't see anything good when I see my cousins dying of asthma attack. I don't see anything good when a simple injury on somebody's arm becomes gangrenous and dies of it. I can't. So I get emotional when it comes to Nigerian issue, because it pains me to see so much suffering in the midst of plenty where I come from. A gentleman here says Zamfara has gold. Nobody goes there to attack them. But immediately I say in my land that I want to do something here, they say you can't dig too deep in case. You can't do this in case. But I go to Katsina State, I go to Nasarawa State, I go to Kaduna State. You can go there and do anything you want. You can take gold. Nobody says anything. Nobody knows. Nigeria does not report gold as part of its earnings. Meanwhile, we know gold are being carted away from Osun, Katsina, Nasarawa, wherever. So that's my only little contribution. It sounds very emotive. It sounds angry. I will be angry because my people are dying. My people for years has contributed to Nigeria, giving a lot to Nigeria, and all we are left with is pollution, degradation of our lives. And our lives are not valued. Are not valued till tomorrow. The only thing that Nigeria used to earn foreign exchange is oil and gas. And that place where the oil and gas come from is decimated. A lot of my people live in Ajegule, Orile, shantytown. A lot of the young girls are prostitutes. In a place where they collect, where they extract oil, no, I can't be in such a place anymore. I'm one of those where if peace does not allow us to separate, if we cannot separate in peace, then whatever the alternative is, I'm ready to face it. But to continue, no. Thank you all. That's my little, maybe emotive take. Thank you.
No, I think it's all part of it. That's the reason why we're all fatherland. I think in different ways we're expressing the same emotion in different ways, but we hear you. Let's just keep going. Okay, thank you. I think it's Dele, Osinuga, and Tony Dara, the two people that we've got left, if I'm correct. Yes? So Dele, are you here?
Yes, I am. I am too.
Yeah. Well done for waited this long. Thank you for that.
No, that's fine. It was quite an engaging and stimulating discussion. And thank you very much to Akogun, Adeniyi, and also to Dr. Abegunde for giving us their shared experiences from Canada and Switzerland, as well as also the previous discussants, particularly Professor Ijose talking about ideology and how that moved the country forward. And also what Tope touched upon in relation to shared values, as well as Chidozie also touched on that. And I do understand Samson, Jesi's frustration. And of course, Jerry talked about the constitutional process in Nigeria. And I think for me, when I look at the history of nation building in Nigeria, starting from the time of amalgamation and the different constitutional conferences we've had during the pre-colonial era and also the colonial era, and also the colonial constitution, starting from the Machiavellian Constitution of 1951, which granted self-government, going on to the Republican Constitution in 1963, which was unfortunately truncated by the military regime, when, of course, the current system we have in place now, which is a kind of a unitary system, was adopted. Nigeria, we pretend that we are a federal country, but we're not. When I look at countries across the world who practice federalism, Mexico is close to where I am here in beautiful Belize. Mexico is a federal country. We can't compare the system of federalism we have in Mexico. And going to the United States and of course the Canada experience, which Chief shared earlier on. Because we're looking at what we have in Nigeria in terms of the fiscal, administrative, political, and constitutional autonomy. This dichotomy between unitary and federal systems is one which over the years has kind of been diluted. The UK is a unitary country, but when I look at the devolved assemblies, the local authorities in the UK, and also in countries like France and Spain, Do we have the same in Nigeria? Certainly not. We've had different constitutional conferences. Jerry alluded to the one in 2014. Obasanjo had one in 2005. We had the political bureau that was constituted by Babangida, headed by Dr. Kuki. The report was jettisoned by Babangida. And then going back, we also had the Constituent Assembly 1979, which was probably the most detailed Constituent Assembly we had. And of course, we had those constitutions in 1979 for the Second Republic, the inflated Third Republic, and of course, the current one, which we're operating now, the Fourth Republic. For me, the issues are clear. We have three options. Do we maintain the status quo? And obviously, most of us in Fatherland believe we should not. Second, do we renegotiate a new constitutional settlement, which I think there's a case for that? And thirdly, is there a case for separation, for secession? I mean, I worked for the last 8 years up to 2018, almost 9 years. I worked for the European Union in Kosovo, which was an autonomous region of Yugoslavia. I do remember and I recall days when people in Nigeria used to go on about say, oh, we want the Yugoslav experience. But what happened in Yugoslavia? They all speak the same language, Serbo-Croat. Don't let anyone fool you. There might be regional differences. Yes, there's issues of religion, Orthodox being mainly Serbians, Catholics, Croats, and then Muslims, of course, the Bosniaks. But once the glue that held the republic together began to erode, then everybody had to go their own separate ways. When Slovenia left the federation, I mean, there was no war. Of course, there was the war between Croatia and Serbia. So we have to look at how our current situation operates now, whether we see the current way forward is what is adaptable for us, but it is certainly not. We look at the history of nation building since the time of the Westphalia Treaty in the 1600s, and we look at all the countries of Europe have basically redrawn their boundaries. Belgium is a very good model as well, because they have divisions, they have autonomous units based on ethnic lines. And I do recall last year I gave a paper in May on the role of traditional institutions, which Chief Adeniyi touched upon. Our traditional kingdoms, our old traditional kingdoms did have perfect systems which were running along the lines of federalism and along the lines of confederation. The Egba nation, the Jebu nation, also the Yoruba, the Remo, of course, they do at one time or the other, and currently do have forms of confederation, where each of the vassal states or the states under the empire do send tributes to the main rulers. And of course, that system works. So let us not fool ourselves. I think now's the time that we really have to face what the issues are and do try and adopt a new constitutional statement for Nigeria, which of course is the middle option. And of course, if everything is not possible, everybody goes their own separate and we succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just have unlearned something, so I will relearn. Thank you very much. Thank you. So Tony Dara, I think, yes, you also deserve an award to have sat through, but you've enjoyed it because you had the new option, but you've enjoyed listening to everybody. So give us your take. As you know, we now have very short time, so it might be an advantage for you. Go on. Go for it.
I mean, I'll take an hour because the learning I've had and this number of hours we've spent, I would like to reflect that back, because when it comes to the issue of constitution, I'm probably the youngest person in terms of getting on board to thinking about it on the Fatherland Group. And I thank God for the education I've gotten from Fatherland Group about the myriad problems that we have in Nigeria. But then we've spoken so much about the kind of constitution that could be, how we could constitute a country, and so on. But what I've not really heard is that we haven't really spoken to the value of the document called Constitution. And, we might go our separate ways, but will we still find value for that document? And the question I want to ask is, is a constitution a steer wheel or a spare wheel? What's the relationship between the constitution and democracy? Because when I hear and we talk about a narrative about how to change this document. You hear political leaders saying that I took an oath to protect this document. And that begins to create an impediment for any source of change. And I think Goodluck faced that, the legitimacy of what he did was sucked out because somebody said he was sworn in to protect and guard the 1999 Constitution. I think what is my biggest takeaway today, and dovetailing into the issue of the constitutional crisis we have, is what Dr. Ike said. I mean, it's something I'm going to write and put in the frame, that a well-informed people will not struggle to come to a consensus. It's really massive. And where I come from, I'm of the northern stock, and they'll probably say northern minority ethnic stock. I'm a Gbagi person with heritage from Niger State and the FCT. It's hardly one thing we think about, because we've had a long history of not conquest, but subjugation, where, if I were Bobariga, I look like a Hausa person, but I'm not. Everything about my traditional clothes doesn't really exist. And thankfully, I've learned this from the Niger Delta, which I love so much. So you see, there is a problem, because when do we come to that consensus? How do we drive to the point of having consensus about changing this document? Because it's really a problem. It is a problem. I have suffered it growing up, because when I finished my secondary school, I couldn't get into university because of the fact that I come from the FCT, and there was no room for anyone who was indigenous of the FCT in all the universities and polytechnics in Nigeria. The extent that I had to lean on Plateau State and now National State to be admitted to study for my national diploma and higher diploma at Kaduna Polytechnic. I mean, for that singular act, I would have been here speaking to you. And there is something to be said about, people. FCT means Federal Capital Territory, where Abuja is cited. Is largely part of was largely part of Niger State, and people who have been conversant with this conversation about constitution and democracy, there are those who are really advanced, but we are not, and we're all Nigerians trapped in this whole quagmire of how do we make that geographical expression work. Where do we start from? Because we need to have those practical steps. Arguably, we cannot divorce from the fact that needs to change, but how do we make that change technically and logically and effectively? Has democracy failed us to make those changes? Because if you have a constitution that cannot be pruned and nurtured by democracy, what do we really have? Where do we go from here? Because it's all well and good, but where I stand, where things are with me, and many of my family, my clan, and whatever you call it, we are really far behind in this conversation. And Fatherland will not do justice if we cannot find, through some sort of political and social anthropology, to create a way that we have this holistic process dealing with this issue. Thank you very much.